I guess we're in it. Like we're in the season. Like it's here. It's here. The season. Tis the season. How many days till Christmas? 47, 46?
I don't know. I would have to ask Alexa, which I just triggered everyone's Alexa by saying that, of course.
Caroline will give us the answer and post it in the chat bot. I saw a website the other day that had like all these like cool countdowns, like countdown by days and time and all that type of stuff.
Right.
We're talking Prime Day. And we're talking about takeaways from Prime Day. What were things that we saw? What were trends that we identified? What were problems sellers had? And really, because we're now in the middle of October, how Prime Day can prepare us and drive us for the next 70 days. So we're 70 days away from Christmas. Your company, Eric Heller, his company is Wonderman, Marketplace Ignition. Thank you for joining me, Eric. I always love seeing, reading, and debating insights with you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a little confusing because it says One Marketplace Ignition behind me. And it's funny because I think this is from, so I recently found this banner and a lot of time, I think it's from a conference that Jeff and I had spoken with together. And I just put it up in the background because I'm trying to change things up a little. We're going on like month 6 working out of our house.
Right.
You want to kind of do something, and it's fun because now this is a little interesting. Now it's retro. Like your shirt, Jeff.
No,
like
it's kind of cool because now that we're 6 months into this pandemic, if I sneeze, everybody on chat doesn't say, "Oh, are you okay? Do you have COVID?" Like now you're allowed to sneeze 6 months later. We've gotten past the point where people are allowed to sneeze.
Exactly.
So share with us in the comments, how was your Prime Day? Was it above average? Was it below average? Was it average? Meaning like, what was your expectation for Prime Day? How do you go back and evaluate Prime Day? And then also share in the comments any challenges that you saw from Prime Day, because that's what we want to kind of address. Any challenges of like, I wasn't expecting this, or what, and I've got a couple that I want to address. But I'm curious how people viewed Prime Day, how Prime Day did for them. I could also ask, like, did you do anything for Prime Day, right? Like, were you just kind of hoping for more sales, or did you run actual promotions? Did you run extra ads? We saw some great results from our managed service clients that were able to drive up a lot of business through aggressive ad campaigns. Eric, in general, like when you guys look back on this week as an agency, as a group, how do you guys kind of digest all of this, and maybe what are some of your key takeaways?
I'm glad you asked that. I did post on that some of the key takeaways this morning for those of you that can see, or link over to my LinkedIn page. So just download that afterwards, and I won't repeat anything you could just get there.
Yeah, Caroline will put that post up. It's in his LinkedIn profile.
Oh yeah, thanks, Caroline. But I do want to say, across our group, so the highest performing one I think was, like 9x in average day, which is outstanding. But I think that was a real outlier. Like, I think in general, we saw some major media placements from the biggest brands we did, and they did very well with those. But if you aren't doing a major bold bet there, then it was fine. Like if I had to say the number one sentiment that I heard from people was, glad to have participated. We were able to make it worthwhile. We probably moved up some purchasing. And we thought it was useful for, to get some of it out of the way, but it was not like earth-shattering, new record-breaking the way we normally see, that we've normally seen where each Prime Day breaks a new record. That was the sentiment.
Yeah. And so a couple of interesting takeaways that I saw from Prime Day, and you covered one of these inside your takeaways, which was, and this was part of the advice I was giving beforehand. It was that, is that Prime Day was really a pre-Black Friday sale, right? And so a lot of the purchases that were occurring this week were people buying gifts. It wasn't necessarily like it it was in July where people were just stocking up. And so if you weren't running a promotion or a discount, it's possible people just didn't buy your product because of the increased traffic, because people were out there really looking for deals, and they were looking for their holiday gifts. They were moving their holiday gift buying to the middle of October versus waiting till November and December. And
That's right.
you know, Amazon had a very interesting press release that came out about Prime Day, and very much postured the way Amazon wants it postured, but indicating that third-party sales represented 3.5 billion in the sales. Now, what's interesting is they say it's a 60% increase year over year, but it better be an increase unless they're comparing it to Prime Day over Prime Day. But I had also read from Marketplace Pulse that they estimated the day to be about a $10 billion day. So if that's true, then the third-party sellers that generated 3.5 billion in sales was still only about 30% of the total sales that occurred that day, where third-party sellers typically represent 50 to 55% of total sales. A lot of numbers I just threw out, so I don't know if you followed all of them, but I'm curious kind of your thoughts on that, and who the real winner of Prime Day was.
Well, I think the first thing you said really was, Amazon's trying to move up some purchases. And that was glaringly clear, right? That was actually the message when you went to Amazon.com. It said something like, order now to avoid having to order later,
Right.
It's sort of an interesting thing. And I think there'll be a lot of social scientists that one day, that analyzed is that is that how people work social? Is that how we think? Can you get people to just buy and put it away versus, shifting up? I will say it's the number one takeaway we had, which is from a brand perspective, like there's plenty of people that sell things that you don't need another one of for a while, whether it's a mattress or an air purifier or whatever it is. And if you can get someone to buy it now, you can avoid the reshop later. You can avoid competing later, which is why we thought it was so advantageous for people to perform aggressively now, because if someone is going to buy, you can lock them in, and then you don't have to worry about competing when there's higher traffic later. Now, in terms of like third party, I think you're exactly right. I think what was glaringly obvious, and Jeff, you and I, look, we both started like a branch working out of Southeast Asia and Shenzhen at one point because we saw so much traffic and we wanted to better understand what they were doing to compete with the US sellers and brands.
Right.
And I thought that was glaringly visible, more than I've ever seen in any other previous Prime Day was the prevalence of digital native brands, both I won't say no name, but what I'll say is lesser known or Southeast Asian brands that you and I, have met and knew so well as I would presume third parties here in the US. Just there was a really high prevalence of deals and offers going up very quickly and surfacing well above traditional main well-known brands that you would have thought would be automatically winning for traffic and
let me give kind of a real example here. So one of our clients, and we've highlighted this client before, so I know they're okay with us talking about them, is called 5 Strands. And 5 Strands is kind of cool, but like think of like DNA and Me or the 23andMe, but for like your dog or your cat. Right. And so they're not necessarily trying to figure out who all of your cat and dogs are related to, but they're doing all this analysis for your dog and cat. So you can know like food sensitivity issues or allergy issues or things like that. So kind of a cool product. And what I think's really cool about their product is that like people will pay, like if you look at their pricing, this cracks me up. Their pricing for like food sensitivity or allergy testing is more expensive for your pet than it is for the human. And when I asked them why, they said because people are willing to pay more for their pets than they are to pay for themselves.
I totally believe that.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
So here's a brand. It's a digitally native brand, not a very well-known brand, who crushed it on Prime Day. And when I asked like what their strategy was to crush it for Prime Day, it was they ran a lightning deal, right? So they ran a Prime Day deal. But they also directed their traffic from Facebook and Instagram. And so they were able to use their social platform and their following outside of Amazon to drive more traffic into Amazon, which then pushes their deal up for more people to see, which then drives more sales for them. They also did some stuff around, some more competitive bid strategies and some video ads, but they came in with a very 360 campaign. They came in with a campaign that was designed around driving them up in the deals. And that's the problem is that even if you run a deal, you can be buried on the deal page.
Right.
So how do you get yourself up to be seen? Because there is a velocity that occurs. I bought a product. I don't know if I have it. Oh yeah, I do. I'll grab it. It's Cards Against Humanity created a kids version.
Right. I saw that.
It's called Kids Against Maturity.
Right.
Now, digitally native brand, right? They grew up in a digital world, and they launched this new product coming into here, and they crushed it by running this deal. And I was like, oh, that looks like a cool product. I'll buy that for my kids. And I put it away, and it's on the shelf for them to play as a holiday gift. So I would assume you've worked with many of your clients on this same type of 360 approach. How do clients feel today about driving external traffic to Amazon to help boost a Prime Day?
I'm glad you asked that, because if there's one thing I saw, because a lot of people may not know, but so we're part of Wunderman Thompson, which is part of WPP, and really we're working with some of the largest brands on the platform, just the largest traditional brands, and then some digital natives. And the thing that I saw across these very large CPG and other brands that we work with that I thought was really effective is that they really looked at this and said, this is really unpredictable. We're going to have our own regular plans and campaigns, our big, bold bets. But the other thing we're going to do, and we saw this, and I think this was highly effective, is we're going to take all the holds off on our media caps. And the reason why, both offsite and onsite, so DSP and programmatic, as well as direct and sponsored and all of the different, all the different ones. And what I think it allowed them to do is to sort of be flexible and anticipate the unanticipatable, that what you couldn't know was coming. And so I agree with what you're saying and what you saw in directing traffic in. I think there's two angles to this. I think, wow, we have never seen live stream used the way I think at the level it was on Prime Day. That was really amazing.
Yeah. I watched these kids, literally these kids were building a TIE fighter.
Right. And they
opened up the box and they were building a TIE fighter for, I didn't watch it, but they were probably there for an hour or two. And at the same time, they were pitching that product.
Right. And Amazon, one of the things so many people think is, I'm not a big enough brand to work on TV. And Amazon, has this, as long as your brand is registered and you have a smartphone, in like 5 minutes on their app, you could be broadcasting. And I think so many brands don't realize that, but it does go all the way up, that if you're Cards Against Humanity or, you name it, Puma, there is something for you there too. And like the Puma workout videos are awesome. And the range of what's available.
Yeah. So for people that didn't see it, if you went to a Lego page, you literally saw this video. It was maybe, I don't know, that much below the main product listing. I'm trying to think of how to describe it.
Right.
It was pretty high up on the page, and it was a live video of two kids building Legos. So people are like, well, I don't know what to do on my live stream. Well, here, all they did was just played with the toy.
Right.
And all these people are like, oh, cool, they're building a TIE fighter. Oh, cool, I want that for my kid. It starts to generate. And then all of a sudden, they became one of the most watched videos of the day, which pushes them up in everything else that's going on.
So I want to talk about, so what's really interesting is I'm spending a lot of time looking at the oral health category. It's one of our big, some of our biggest clients are in that space. And what's really interesting that combines some of all of this together to create sort of this interesting way. You know, we've talked over the last few minutes about getting your sale in early before others. We've talked about using video. We've talked about media placements, this holistic view. And what's interesting is I've been watching so much because we had a major launch over the last few days of an electronic toothbrush from a key client. But you go back, and what's interesting is I started watching in advance of Prime Day. And what's really interesting is you had like about a week before Prime Day, you had this digital native brand Oraglow. I don't know if you've seen these guys before, but they make this thing that looks like a soccer mouth guard that you put gel on and then you put it in your mouth with a UV light. And what was amazing and fascinating to me is they spent all their money on a major deal of the day, like 5 days before Prime Day. But here's the interesting thing. If they can make that work, then they keep everyone from shopping that product on Prime Day, right? Because you only need one whitening mouth guard thing to try at a time. So they put this thing in. They did such a huge, bold bet that they elevated their product and visibility all the way to #1 in oral care, which is I mean, like in front of toothpaste.
Right.
So they got in early as a digital native brand. That was a very aggressive stance. And I think there's certainly brands that we all know out there that could have done that. And they avoided the fray on Prime Day, which I think was a great tactic. We should all look at. We talk all the time about copying tactics from digital natives, even for big brands. And then on Prime Day, what was really interesting was it was like the war of the smart toothbrushes. You had Colgate Hum, you had Philips Sonicare, and they were head to head on programmatic. If you had even talked to someone near an Alexa over the last 5 weeks, you were probably going to get targeted with one of these ads by Amazon. And what was fascinating was to see how they were implemented, how I would tell you that it turned out to be a smart strategy for the Sonicare.
Right. There's no way they would have been able to compete on Prime Day. They would have lost their visibility.
Not only that, but I think there's lessons here both to take from Oraglow, and there's lessons here to take for if you want to be on Prime Day and you've got a category where you suspect you need to go big, you probably need to go big. And that was it in that case. Like, it would have been hard to be the third brand selling electric toothbrushes that day.
But the thing that I also want to say about going big, because I think this is like what kind of scares people, right? For smaller SMB companies.
Yes.
You know, we talked about 5 Strands. 5 Strands shared some data with me, right? So they did a Prime deal. It cost them $2,000. They got a, let's see, I'm doing the quick math here. They got a 7, almost 8x return just from that deal. They did a Lightning deal. It cost them $1,500. Didn't fare as well. Only gave them about a 2.2 return on that deal. Combined between the Prime deal and the Lightning deal, they spent $3,500, but they generated almost $18,000 in sales. So when you start to look at all these things combined, they're sponsored product ads, running a Lightning deal, running a Prime deal, driving the external traffic, that's when things start to come together. And so even the deal that you're talking about, it's not about them just running that deal. It's this combination. We like to call it pulling triggers, right? So we like to call it pulling triggers. And what's beautiful is when you pull levers or triggers, when you pull those levers and you get the right levers that work together.
Yes.
And that's what, so like, you can't just look at them and go, oh, I'm going to run my deal 5 days early. Because that's not what made them successful. That was part of what made them successful.
Right. I think you're exactly right. And
Austin's on here from 5 Strands. What's
I was
up,
just going to say that. You were like, he's given us permission to talk. I was like, he's not only giving you permission to talk, he's in the chat, telling us, go ahead. That's great. So I just want to tell you, I love that. So this is, I think you're exactly right. You and I have talked about this so many times about there's so many pockets of opportunity. You win Amazon at the lowest level of categorization. The #1 bestseller is not frequently the #1 bestseller in oral care. The #1 bestseller badge is all the way down at teeth whitening mouth guards, like the lowest. Hi, Austin, is, so like you win there and you get visibility at that level that really elevates you in search. And so I think what's so outstanding about that is that you really there's so much opportunity. You know, you can win on dog DNA and you're not competing at all on people who are looking for 23 in me as an example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, hey, what's up, man? Oh, you're
Oh,
muted.
no,
You're muted.
You're muted. I can't believe, by the way, talk about that, like an amazing flexibility.
Yeah, I had no clue Austin was coming on today, but actually, and I wasn't even smart enough to buy mine on Prime Day, but I've been having issues with my dog, and so Austin and I have been talking on the side, and I'm running all the tests on my dog right now, to find out why my dog keeps scratching all the time. So, what's up, Austin? How are you?
Good, man. Amazing. Honestly, I was crying a little bit a few seconds ago. My team was reaching out on Slack, just saying that you guys were talking about our business. And, you know, it's not just a me effort. It's literally our entire company. And we were able to put together so much effort. And you talked about those levers, and it took all of us. And, you know, I just wanted to kind of open up and provide myself, if anybody had any questions of how we made this work. I mean, this was a process that started as soon as quarantine happened. We were being proactive and started prepping for Prime Day back in March. You know, and that's the thing, is a lot of businesses don't plan ahead of time. And like you just said, you know, they think 5 days ahead of time, oh, we're good to go. We were boosting our algorithms and rankings back when we asked for customer reviews, and we had our customers texting, we had our employees texting customers, you know, every single day, at least trying to get our rankings up and up and up. Right. Then eventually, you know, we started shipping an inventory, and we had some difficulties there with some of the COVID restrictions. But, you know, the biggest thing was just making sure that we did as much as we possibly could to have the best experience possible. And we actually ended up selling out of a lot of our inventory. So we were amazed at the response that we were able to create just from all the opportunity that we had.
Yeah. And one of the things about it that made this Prime Day so different than other Prime Days, and Eric, I'd love to hear how your customers dealt with this too, was we didn't have a ton, like Amazon was asking for deals back in April for a July Prime Day. Then they were asking for deals in like August for a September Prime Day. And then all of a sudden in October, they're like, Prime Day's in 2 weeks. Yeah. So if you hadn't been planning for this for 5 months, and you didn't have the extra inventory, and you didn't there was no way to get, by the time Amazon officially announced Prime Day's date, you couldn't get inventory into Amazon.
Right.
Yeah. And that was what was so amazing about this, is our founder, Lisa, had actually applied for our Prime Day deals back in, I want to say February or March, whenever they had released them. And if you would have not done it until that time, we would have been out of it. And you were talking about the sales, and you know, the lightning deals, yeah, they worked, they were okay, but it was the Prime Day deals that really stood out and made that difference. And, you know, I worked with Brett, who we've been partners with on the Seller Lab side for 2 years now. And he's got someone, Christian, who's been helping us with our campaigns. And we were actually able, like you said, to bring some of that Facebook traffic. And based upon last year's learning experience, they love external traffic. When you are willing to bring people from a new platform to theirs, then, like you said, it boosted all of our algorithms and rankings, and totally, it was amazing. And what we also did that I didn't necessarily put in that email I sent to you is I did Amazon Lives. That was a huge thing for us. And every time we had a lightning deal or a Prime Day deal, I was live, and I was actually tracking, hey guys, we only have 100 left in inventory. You know, we've only got 100 in stock. And I would say, hey, this deal is 50% claimed, and educate them, talk to them, go through questions. So it was a full overall experience that, you know, I'm sitting at my home relaxing, because it was 2 days of pure exhaustion.
Well, and yours is not a simple product, right? I mean, it's a simple product, but it's not a simple product. Like, you just take some of your dog's hair and you ship it in and you get all the results. But you know, there's a lot of questions about, do I need this? Do I want this? What's it going to tell me? And so, yeah, we were talking about live right before you jumped on, and how people were using lives. That's another great example. And again, I'll go back to the fact that it's another lever, right? And we're working, just for everybody to know, we're working with Austin right now on building out a case study where we're going to cover kind of everything that we did from an advertising perspective and what he did from a brand perspective, because don't think of this as a Prime Day promotion. Think of this as like a holiday. It's just how you should run a promotion, right? There just happens to be more traffic on Prime Day because there's another one coming up, Black Friday. Eric, I'm curious, when your customers are already your clients are already working on Cyber 5, right? And the physical stores are going to be closed on Thanksgiving. They've already started to announce that they're not going to be open, which means Cyber Monday is going to really turn into Cyber Thursday because it's going to be a mad craziness.
I think, right. So let's talk about, and one of the things that we think about last year, it's really easy for us to think in this North American mindset, but don't forget also, there's actually an Amazon spike even in North America for Diwali. And how many of us are talking about really remembering, by the way, there's a lot of purchasing. Now, by the way, Amazon, if your products are in India, Amazon India, that's their biggest day. And so we actually, you got to really think broadly, we are going into the highest, most concentrated set of tentpole events we've ever seen in e-com. And it's only going to be inflamed by, or I should say accelerated. Inflamed makes it sound worse. Accelerated by the
nobody wants to be inflamed
stores. And so
test for that.
And so what we're really saying here, I think, is exactly in line with what you're saying. Every dollar you can book now is a win, because then you've got, we just heard Austin talk about, man, we're sold out of some stuff. Boy, that's something you're not having to worry about. Now you're just worried about getting more inventory, but you're you've hit your first target. The other thing is to think about, okay, great, how do I plan so I can get the continuity? The example being, selling out means you lose some of the halo effect or momentum on the bestseller rank. And so I think this is really about thinking about what you just said, Jeff, which is this is going to start coming at us in all of 2020, unpredictably. So how do we do as best we can, where we have a Prime Day with 2 weeks warning, where we have suddenly a spike for Diwali for pet DNA analysis? Really? That's now we know it's a thing. And I think we won't know yet how to predict necessarily what's going to happen with things like, whether or not there'll be closures or panic buying for things like grocery or anything else. But I think what we can do is try and understand the macroeconomic factors, try and look at, you mentioned Marketplace Pulse. There's some great work out there that you guys have done and other about what are the keywords telling us people are going to be wanting in the next 1 to 3 weeks. And we did that. I remember I was posting about this, I think with you, Jeff, or maybe we did an early summer live event where we were talking about nobody's even watching this, but above ground pools are about to go insane. And I think really knowing what the signals are that are, visible right in front of you, search keywords and other things are the best trend, because otherwise, we're all going to get tripped up by the unexpected macroeconomic drivers.
Yeah, let me ask Austin one more question so I can let him go here. But Austin, the question I want to ask you, I think other people that are watching would love to hear is you guys all of your data points to having a very successful Prime Day. So when now you can't take your foot off the gas pedal. So how are you looking at the Cyber holiday weekend? And we call it Cyber 5 for people that don't know. That's because you got Thanksgiving, you got Black Friday, then you have Small Business Saturday, then you have Sunday break and Cyber Monday. I just never was a name for Sunday, so I gave it one. So that when we talk about Cyber 5, that's what we're talking about, those 5 days. How are you kind of revamping or not revamping, but how are you kind of looking at that? And do you guys have any deals planned for Black Friday? And then Caroline will post your link again for anyone who's interested in getting their pet tested.
Yeah, so here is our number one focus point. The Prime Day has always been a catapult for us for the rest of the year. The reason being is we had, I want to say, over 1,200 units sold over those 2-day periods, which means 1,200 unique customers that are now entering into our environment, our ecosystem. And what I've been really speaking to my team about is how well can we treat these 1,200 customers? How well can we make their user experience to when that next holiday deal comes? They've already had their test results provided to them. They've already had the best customer service experience, to where then when they go sit down at that Thanksgiving dinner, they're talking about our product. They're talking about that unique experience that they had, and it's organic marketing. So, yes, we are going to prepare and do some of the streamlined things that, you can apply for the Black Friday deals. We can set up our campaigns. We can, work with obviously you guys to enhance the keywords that did trigger better responses. But, it's amazing just how much of our advertising comes outside of the platform's use. And mainly the platform is used to make sure they have the easiest user experience and are educated on what they're buying. But our job is to educate them outside of it and then bring them in and have a fun user experience. So yeah, we're just excited to move forward. Moving into the Black Friday sales is going to be great. Moving into Christmas and holiday sales, we're obviously going to be running promotions, but it doesn't ever stop there, because then based upon our test, it's a health test. So you get New Year's resolutions and people starting to get into the fitness industry again. So January and February are actually sometimes busier than our holiday sales. And I was speaking with one of our team members, and they were saying, they speak to customers saying, I saved up everything I had to buy your test this year. Think about the financial crisis that a lot of families are going into, and that's a big burden. So if you can make that experience incredible, that's an impact that we're going to be able to provide. And, that's why we enjoy what we do. We're able to literally better the lives of people and their relationships with their pets every day.
Awesome.
Thanks. Austin, I think that was super powerful. I know we're trying to let you go, but I actually want people to understand something, which is that's so powerful, because you talked about New Year, New You as being a DNA pet testing peak. And
they do human testing too.
Okay, good.
Well, they don't test humans, but they.
Okay, great. So it still goes to the same factor, which is one of the things we talk about all the time that I think is so important, is that people come into these channels like Amazon, like Walmart, like any of these, and have a preconceived notion of like when people buy their product. And I can remember I was telling Jeff once early on, we had a client that was like the largest seller of foot health product. And, I think I may have even told this story with you, Jeff, before, but, we came in and we said, where's your holiday plan? And they're like, look, we sell insoles for bunions. And I was like, okay, but, traffic is going to be 4 to 6x up. People buy products where they're going to be online with their wallet open. You have to, don't anticipate. And suddenly we saw they did 2.5x in their first year on foot insoles, that because people are on there and they still need the product. So you really need to think about, as you're in there, as you're online and as you're thinking about it, even if you think my product is not a promotional product or is not a seasonal product, there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of buying. I urge people watching this, think of what you bought on Prime Day. And I bet they weren't all gifts, right? I bet you also got, something that, you just had to go get, your wife told you to buy. And if you think about that, think, okay, is my product something people would have done that?
Right. You're right. And that's the thing is, like, let's say for Cyber Monday deals, a lot of people are still on Amazon shopping and buy stuff outside of electronics, and that's where,
absolutely.
Yeah, if we don't have the option to run that type of sale or promotion, we'll make our own, we'll put our own coupon on there, because we know there's just going to be people eager and willing to, invest in themselves at the end of the day. That's a lot of where we base our marketing around, is you're investing in yourself or you're investing in your pet. And that's something that we just love to be able to put out there.
So let me kind of recap this, and then I'll let you go here, Austin. I appreciate you sharing, and you guys have always been great about sharing not just what you do, but the numbers behind it. You're not afraid for people to know what you do, and I think that's awesome. And if you are interested in getting your pet or yourself tested for food or allergy intolerances or environmental intolerances, please check out 5 Strands. But what they did was they started early, right? So they were buying deals back in February and March, planning on Prime Day. They made inventory decisions. They made promotional decisions. They looked at the ramp up period beforehand to ensure they had reviews, to ensure they had good, solid listings. They built an integrated advertising approach. So working with their ad management team, which happens to be Seller Labs, they didn't just run the Prime Day deals. They also were running, they were also running sponsored ads and brand ads and video ads to bring people in and help tell the rest of the story. And the success of Prime Day, while the day was successful, launches their success moving forward. And I thought, Austin, one of the things you said that was awesome was, if we can change people's lives, they sit down at the table and talk about it. And if my test comes back and I can change something about my dog's diet, I'm going to sit down and talk to all of my wife's kids, because my family doesn't have dogs, but my wife's siblings, about what we did and how it impacted him. And they're going to all be like, oh my God, I should do that for my dog. And that's the way you build momentum. And
yes,
love what you guys do and love how you guys approach these. And thanks again for sharing.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on here. Just super excited. And like I said, we'll talk more, and we'll definitely get your pet on the right track. I don't know why it took you so long, but hey, we're here.
Thanks.
Nice.
All right, bye guys.
Hey, Jeff, I think that comment for a minute, I think it's so important. I think you should hit it one more time, or I can, but we talk about this all the time. Like, as people are getting ready for this, you have to think, like, imagine if you were going home on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and you knew your store was open Friday and you were going to have lines out the door. Would you not like sweep the aisles? Would you not put all the products back on the right shelves? Would you not?
Yeah, you and I have talked about that before numerous times, which is that if you have a physical presence, there's things that you just naturally think about, and there's things you naturally do. But when you get to online, all of a sudden you say to yourself, well, I don't need to do that. But before we get into that, and I want to get into physical stores and how this all plays in, I like to throw in a little commercial break. And so if you are interested in having your ads perform just like Austin's, well, I can't actually say just like Austin's, reach out to us through the chat and let us know. Type in the word campaign or CAT, campaign assessment tool, and we'll do a free analysis of your Amazon advertising to kind of tell you what we see that's working and not working, and come back to you with recommendations and help get you on the right track as well. So let's talk physical stores, right? So or physical presence, maybe not just physical stores, but physical presence. With the pandemic and with the way e-commerce shopping is occurring, how you've got a lot of clients who work on kind of both sides of the aisle, so to speak, the digital aisle and the physical aisle. How are you guys anticipating that, and how are your clients kind of looking at digital different, or maybe physical footprint different,
right,
as you move into the holiday season?
Well, one of the things that was interesting to me this year, so there's sort of three answers to this. The first one I would say is, let's talk about just, and this was the first Prime Day, and this hasn't gotten a lot of press, that had almost no physical footprint to it. So what I mean is, we sent teams around the US into Whole Foods, the Go store, the 4-Star store, and very low, like in the past, for example, we did, there's a partnered interaction with General Mills and Cheerios that was so exciting, because Cheerios blew up at Whole Foods, and like no one thinks like, oh, there's a place for Cheerios at Whole Foods. And when you think about like the size and scope of this, you think, oh my gosh, the shopper marketing and the opportunities and the tie-ins. And this year we saw almost no mention of Prime Day at Whole Foods. The Go store had nothing. The 4-Star, there were like 4 or 10 products. And it's really interesting. And I think for brands that they have products.
Do you think that was a direct reflection of the fact that Prime Day was kind of touch and go for so long that Amazon just couldn't commit to it?
Exactly. I think that physical store interaction is really hard. It requires a lot of preparation. So on that, for this, I'm guessing that so much of our crowd today who's watching necessarily isn't thinking at this level of doing shopper marketing in stores, but it's available and we've seen it and it works.
But if you have never been into an Amazon 4-Star,
oh, you got to go.
It is packed with third-party seller products.
Right.
And so so the Go store is their convenience store that's trying to, compete with what's it called? Puff Go and Go Puff. Yeah. And some other ones. But the 4-Star is like just high volume 4-Star products. And you go in there and it's digitally native brands all over the place. And
amazing. Not only that, by the way,
and they put a lot of products in those stores.
Right. If anyone lives, not just has one nearby, if you're within 2 or 3 hours of one of these and you've never been, you should drive to Go. And the reason I say is just walking around helps you understand so much around what people in that area buy, how the Amazon algorithm works, how they do and integrate product in that space, because the stores are very algorithmically set, the assortment. And it's a great way to sort of see an interaction of how people think and shop in Amazon store. So I highly recommend it. But also thinking about the digital walking the shop. We talk about all the time with our clients, like you need to walk the shop before. This is part of what we call like the SOP for a tentpole event. So the standard operating procedure. And I can't tell you enough how many companies think, well, we just touch that content. We do ours at, twice a year, winter and summer, and we do, we rewrite it, we check everything. Even if they do that, you should walk as many, as many of your products as you can. Walk the shop. Look, is it displayed right? Is it noted correctly? I can't tell you like how many. We just saw this the other day with one of the largest brands in the U.S. on Amazon, and a third party had moved some of their products so they weren't showing in the right node. And you don't think like, oh, well, how important could that be, until you realize someone searches for, I don't know, I'll make this up just to be, but someone searches for headphones. If something is not down at noise canceling, but has been moved over to running.
Well, I was talking with a seller yesterday. He told me he checks campaign on some of his key products. He checks campaign node daily to make sure it hasn't changed.
Because it moves.
I'm sorry, category node, not campaign node.
Right. It is so important, and people don't. It's like what I love about this.
What are your? I'm putting you on the spot here because this wasn't something you prepared for. But what are your 5 stats that you think are like the daily I should be watching? Right. So category node is, and maybe it's not daily, but just regularly. Category node is clearly one. We've talked about it before. If you get in the wrong category, you don't show up correctly.
Right.
Are there any others that come off the top of your head?
But I don't know if those are, maybe, I don't know if category node is a stat necessarily, but.
Or just data that you're watching, right?
Right. If you are walking the shop, I would have someone on a regular basis looking at your top. So first of all, you want to make sure your ads are showing, obviously, and that your ad, like you're looking at, and I'll tell you what I look at, by the way, that I find fascinating is not just what our ads are, but I also very frequently look at like, what are the products for the nodes I really care about? What's bestseller right now? And I look, I feel like nobody talks about movers and shakers anymore. And it's so easy. It's like this old doppelganger of an Amazon feature. But what I do is go in, and it's amazon.com/movers-and-shakers. And then you can look by category. And what I love about this is this list is not a bestseller list. It is honed for products that have the biggest sales rank increase in the last 24 hours. And what it allows you to do is see what no one else is showing, which is what are the up and coming products that are breathing down your neck. If you have a top product, and I'll try and put this into the chat, or maybe Caroline can. But what it allows you to do is to really understand, not just looking at your own product, but who do I have to watch out for?
Right. So if your category node is, we like to use black dress, then that's the mover and shaker you want to be checking is black dress. You don't want to just be looking at all movers and shakers. You want to be kind of tagging. So you're kind of saying like, kind of see who's coming. Make sure you're in the right categories. Be looking at your key products and ensure that your ads are displaying, either because you've run out of budget or you're not bidding enough to get that placement. Anything else you add to that kind of quick list?
Oh my gosh, we talked about, well, I'll tell you something we do. This is a little secret sauce, but I know sometimes.
Just between you and me.
Right. If you wouldn't mind, when you do the annotation for this, just say no one watch past 44 minutes.
Right.
But one of the things that I think is most important is that we're often tracking conversion against sales. And the reason why is that if you map those together, we call that the ASIN. So this is sort of a proprietary grid that we started building a few years ago, and we call it the ASIN opportunity matrix. But what it allows you to do is sometimes you'll go to someone, you say, what are your best products? And they'll go, oh, well, my best products are, and they're doing it by sales. But if you map sales against conversion, what it gets you is it creates a scatter plot that tells you maybe that's your best product by dollars, but it's not converting at the level of some of your biggest products. And it tells you it's like a hidden way of understanding if you have a conversion problem on your product. Don't repeat that. Caroline, if you wouldn't mind cutting this at 43 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because we always talk about people's strategies, but the ability to hear strategy and implement strategy become the challenge, right? So the good sellers who are on here will implement that. But that's an advanced strategy. And what you're saying is you're not saying what are my best products, you're saying what are my best opportunities.
That's right. Because, I'll tell you,
and this goes back to an early fundamental concept of like, I want to look at, okay, cool. I got great conversion. If I can send more traffic, I can drive more sales. Oh, I have a lot of traffic, but I have bad conversion. Oh, I need to work on my conversion points. Exactly. Don't send any more traffic. It filters back into that kind of basic concept that we've been talking about for a few years, but sellers for lack of a better term, sellers get hung up on these like advanced concepts as opposed to what I call money moves, right? Like what you just talked about was a money move. I'm putting my energy in the right place that can make me money.
So what's funny is we talked to a client that had really large like drugstore and boutique mascara. And we were talking to them and we were saying, well, what are your best deals? Your best products. And they told us exactly this mascara that's super popular on Amazon. And when we looked at it, we ran what I just talked about. What we found is, sure, this thing is a massive seller. But what's interesting is when you really sat down, it told us we need to do a focus group because women were having a hard time differentiating between, the different blacks. Because the way, and what you could tell is it was not converting it at any of the level of their other ones. And it was because it was really hard to figure out what your color was unless you had your own current package on it and you were looking and you knew the actual name of the variant. So this is a great example of like how a product, it was actually one of their biggest sellers, but it should have been so much more, but it was hard to buy.
So we talked a little bit about Austin's version through Prime Day, and Jerry, who's a regular on here and also a client of our service organization, posted some data. So I want to share that as well because a lot of people can look at Austin and go, okay, great. So he was smart and he planned way in advance. Let's talk about kind of the other way, which is like, I didn't run a Prime Day deal. And that's what I think is interesting about Jerry's. So Jerry looked at trailing 30 days. So not Prime Day to Prime Day, just trailing 30 days. And they saw their target was a 2X increase in sales. They had a 3X increase on Tuesday and a 2X increase on Wednesday. So a little bit better on day one than day two. Working with the managed services team, they increased their ad budgets and their spend accordingly. They ran small discounts and coupons. They had no official Prime Day promotion. They launched their coupon early on Saturday and they ran it late. So it's still running today. And he said, as a rule, only products with a deal of any kind had sales. I think that's a really interesting point. So products without deals did not have a lot of action. And so what Jerry was taking advantage of was the increased traffic and the idea that people were only going to buy if there was an incentive to buy.
Right.
And kind of played off of that. So he wasn't running this gigantic lightning deal and Prime Day deal and live television and Facebook and Instagram. He went with this more simplistic approach that just said, hey, shoppers on Amazon are looking for deals. I'm going to give them some deals. And if they happen to come on my product, they'll buy. And he was able to, we'll call it 2.5x his business if I average 3 and 2 over 2 days, which I'm sure Jerry was happy with.
Right. I think that, I think that's definitely a good strategy. And I think like, we also have hardly talked at all, Jeff, today about this halo effect.
Yep.
Really understanding, the effect, like we talked earlier about how Orglo went before, but think about this. They went into Prime Day with an organic search ranking and an organic seller ranking for that product that probably saved them money on Prime Day. And I think really, as you look at your portfolio of product, your assortment, really understanding how people co-shop, leveraging every bit of data about what, people also buy this or frequently bought together, and really saying, okay, great, here's the universe of my products. And like, especially if you have a comparison grid, co-promoting some of those, but not all of them, can cause you to lift all of them. You can have like a cross-day halo from a major promotion. And then you can really elevate multiple products like the carrying case because you elevated the major one. Like, you may make up your margin because half the people will buy the carrying case at full price for the thing you sold on discount, as an example.
And I think that the combination between what you're talking about and what Jerry was talking about and what Austin was talking about is you all went in with a strategy. And it sounds so simple. It sounds like, okay.
Wait a minute. Well, can you say that again?
Right. But the number of sellers who go in and don't have a strategy, and what I'm impressed about with Jerry is that Jerry said to me, my goal was 2X and here's what we did. And the number of sellers who could probably make that statement aren't as many as the ones who just said, I ran discounts and was hoping I would generate sales on Prime Day.
Right.
And if you don't have a goal, then you have no way to measure whether you were successful or not to determine if that's the plan of what you want to do in the future or not. And we've seen this over time, even back in 2-3 years ago with like Buy, when they were like some of the first like innovative digitally native campaigns that were being run. It all starts out with like, my strategy is this long-term approach. My strategy is sales on that day. My strategy is halo effect. My strategy is complementary product sales. You have to understand how you're going to measure success to truly know whether your day was successful or not.
That is an excellent point. I think the strategy, you and I used to laugh all the time, Jeff, about people who would come up and ask us, okay, I heard everything you said, but how do I game frequently bought together? That's not even barely a tactic, let alone a strategy. But the strategy is, how do I move over time so that the carrying case is bought with it? How do I co-run these to elevate them together?
Right. Because if you know that's your goal, then there's certain ad campaigns you can run. There's certain couponing you can run. And then once you get that momentum and it's there, you can peel those back.
That's exactly right. That's the overarching strategy.
But you have to understand what you're trying to do. Otherwise, there's no way to judge whether your strategy worked. Austin's goal of his deal was not, I didn't ask him this, but I'm going to guess. His goal of his deal was not the sales on Prime Day. He goes, the goal of our deal was to get people to talk about it at Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh my gosh.
So his goal of Prime Day was
outstanding.
Right. So his
strategy.
Right. So his goal of Prime Day was to generate interest that they see down the road will generate more sales.
That's brilliant. And I love that. And I think that's exactly right. And that translates into new people buying that they're talking about it on New Year, New You. I think that to me, for his brand, I think, so Colgate had a big launch over this weekend, over this Prime Day, of the Hum toothbrush. And it was this great placement. And I hadn't bought one yet because it just came out. And I will tell you what's really funny about this is I bought it and I have showed everyone that was near me when I was brushing my teeth how my phone is knows where it is in my mouth and is telling me, oh, you're brushing wrong. And that's it's so integrated and it's so new that by getting this out there, I'm sure everybody is doing what I'm doing because it's just so wild.
No, nobody's doing that. But
if they bought it, they will be. I'm going to send you one now, Jeff.
What's the so I want to wrap up here. As you look at Prime Day and you digest it all, what are your kind of thoughts, moving forward? What are your thoughts for the next 70 days? We didn't even get into some of the issues Amazon had. I don't know if people had them, but I was noticing Merchant Fulfilled started selling in the middle of the day instead of Prime. It seemed like Amazon had some kind of algorithmic issue. I heard a lot of complaints about listings being suppressed in the middle of Prime Day because of photos. They ran some algorithm update on photos in the middle of Prime Day. Who knows? But we didn't get into all of that, and we could probably go for another hour. But like when let's just kind of wrap this up for everybody and kind of put a nice little bow on it. And as we look at Prime Day 2020, it obviously goes down as being unique for a lot of different ways. We're in the heat of the holiday season. So like what's next for sellers and what's maybe some, last advice, not last minute, but last advice to be sharing?
Yeah, I think, first of all, from what we've seen, the word unique applies to this entire year. Unprecedented, unique, pick your name. I think what we really need to do is you need to sort of do everything you can to, one, harden your fulfillment and integration with Amazon. I think, get that product in stock, stay in stock. It sounds great to blow through all the way your inventory, but we all know you would rather almost blow through your inventory. We all know that you would rather. And so really spending as much time as you can, because so much is unanticipated. Then I would say use all the data you can that's available to you, whether from your partner agency, whether from Jeff and his team, wherever you can get it, so that you can anticipate the trends of what people are searching for, because none of us know, with all the macroeconomic factors right now, no one really knows what's going to drive next week's purchasing, but we do have better insight than if we were only selling in physical stores. And then next, I would say, is really looking at those keywords, really keeping on top of your media campaigns, and really leveraging offsite and onsite traffic. Like Austin's comment was mind-blowing, and I hope people caught it, where he said, yeah, I got logged in, and then what I did was I started to see there's only 100 units left, then 50 units left. And I'm thinking everybody could do this. That was outstanding. Of like, he almost turned it into like a QVC kind of operation. And that's bolting onto a free Amazon tool that they give you free. So I think really leveraging the technology, and then finally, the last thing, and you and I say this all the time, but really look at the digital natives. Almost nothing they're doing can't be copied or leveraged or incorporated in some way to what every brand is doing. It's not, it's like, it's visible and apparent why and how they're doing well. And so much of it can be copied, but you have to be nimble and you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah. And I would say, don't copy what they're doing, but integrate what they're doing. That's a better word. You'll never be able to copy what somebody else is doing, but you can integrate tactics that they're doing into the stuff that you're doing. And I know that's what you intended to say, but I just wanted to kind of prove that point or reiterate that point, because I think so many times if you try to copy what somebody else is doing, you will fail because you're not doing everything they're doing.
Right. But
and that's a trick. That's a trick of the it's kind of like a mind trick that occurs. Well, I was going to get into some fun stuff like what podcast are you listening to? What are you streaming on Netflix? But we've run out of time. I want to thank everybody for coming on. Love hanging out and chatting Amazon with you, Eric. Honestly, this is like you and I just being on the phone. But we get to share it with everybody else. Thank you, Austin and Jerry, for sharing some of the stats and data from your business. Again, if you're interested in Seller Labs helping you with your advertising, or if you're interested in reaching out to Marketplace, Ignition, Wonderman, WPP, they've got like the longest company name I've ever seen.
Wonderman
Look up Eric on
Commerce,
LinkedIn.
Part of the Amazon Center of Excellence for WPP.
Look up Eric Heller on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find them. And again, we'll be back. I think next week we're back with a webinar on buyer seller messaging, bringing some more updates to buyer seller messaging and kind of what's happening in the market with that, with some big changes coming down the first week of November. Also, the first week of November is our election. So take your time and vote. I've seen a lot of people posting pictures with them doing early voting. So we do obviously encourage and want everybody to go out and vote and speak their mind. Don't post in here what you're voting. I don't want this to become a political conversation. And I want to just thank everybody. I think, Eric, the one point I want to reiterate as my final point is expect the unexpected.
Yes.
Right? There's 70 days till Christmas. Typically, the Christmas rush leads right up until, 2 days before Christmas. We're seeing all the trucking companies behind. We're seeing, they've already dropped their 1 day and 2 day guarantees. They're already, delaying ground transportation. Amazon is already having a delay in getting products into the warehouse. So shoppers are going to start buying early in anticipation of that. So if you do run out of stock early, it might be because the market has moved earlier than you were thinking. Don't necessarily overstock to overcompensate for that. But set your goals, have an idea of what you're trying to do, make a plan. That's the biggest thing that you need to take out of here is make a plan. Jerry had a plan. Austin had a plan. Eric and his clients had a plan. The managed services team at Seller Labs had a plan. And that's the best way to identify as to whether you were successful in what you did. So thank you, everybody. Everyone have a great day. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.